Why does someone fall in love with you, even without really knowing you? It's not about appearance, not about charm either. Something much deeper is happening. And according to Carl Jung, it could change everything you believe about love. Maybe what attracts you to people is actually what you hide from yourself. And love? It might be a mirror or a trap. Carl Jung explains why people fall in love with you. And look, it has nothing to do with appearance. Love isn't random. Have you noticed how some people seem to have their romantic radar calibrated for a specific type of person? It's not a coincidence. According to Carl Jung, love is not about luck or butterflies in your stomach. It stems from an invisible psychological map that each of us carries within. Looks or charm might catch attention, but they don't explain the depth of connection. Behind every intense passion lies an unconscious structure that shapes our choices, as if the mind already knew who to approach before we even understand why. And most curiously, often this why has nothing to do with the other person and everything to do with you. Think about that pattern you keep repeating in relationships. You know that type of person who always seems to attract you, even when you swear next time will be different. Jung would explain this with almost unsettling clarity. Your romantic preferences aren't born from chance, but from your own psyche. The unconscious mind acts like a magnet, seeking in others something that's missing, something you want to rediscover, even without knowing what it is. That's why many people think love is a beautiful coincidence, but perhaps it's more a reflection of what has been left silent within your own soul. It's as if the heart is merely the messenger of something deeper. When someone falls in love, what seems like magic is actually an internal call. The person feels they've found something, but in reality, they're just rediscovering themselves through the other. And this raises a powerful question. If love isn't random, then what exactly are we looking for in the people who enchant us? This question isn't just philosophical. It's practical, because by understanding it, we begin to see more clearly what's behind relationships, or rather, what's about to be projected onto them. Projection, seeing ourselves in others. It's almost hypnotizing when you meet someone and feel like you've known them for years, even though you've just exchanged a few words. This sense of familiarity isn't magical, it's projection. Jung said we project hidden or repressed parts of ourselves onto others, especially those we feel attracted to. It's like seeing others through glasses colored by our own emotional history. We don't see the person as they are. We see what we need to see. And then, voila. The illusion of a deep connection is born, when in fact we're looking at a mirror and thinking it's romance. This mechanism is so automatic that it goes unnoticed. A super-rational woman might be charmed by a free-spirited, impulsive, and uncomplicated guy, not because he's the one, but because he carries what she has suppressed within herself. The same goes for that straight-laced guy who falls for the chaotic, emotionally expressive woman. It's not blind passion, it's the soul trying to recover what it lost along the way. We do connect with others, yes, but before that, we connect with our forgotten parts. And this, of course, can be fertile ground for profound lessons or major stumbles. So when you catch yourself saying, "I've never met anyone like this before," you can bet there's more of you in that statement than it seems. And that's the danger of projection. It dresses the other in our unconscious costume. The problem? Eventually, the costume falls off. And when that happens, the flesh and blood person appears, full of flaws, limitations, and differences. That's when many people feel betrayed. But what's crumbling isn't love, it's fantasy. And if there's one thing this fantasy tends to hide, it's the real reason why we're attracted in the first place. Reason one, you represent what they don't have. Some people enter your life and look at you as if you were the answer to a question they didn't even know they had asked. This happens because, often, you represent exactly what's missing inside them. It's as if your energy fills a void they never managed to name. People stuck in routine might be enchanted by your lightness. Others, full of control, are fascinated by your chaos. But this isn't full love yet. It's a need disguised as passion. It's the unconscious trying to balance the internal scales through someone else. And this might seem romantic at first, almost like an emotional puzzle fitting together. But when the person isn't aware of this, they start to see you as an emotional crutch. You become the symbol of something they want to be, but don't know how. And gradually, what was admiration transforms into demands, dependency, expectation. That freedom that made you so attractive becomes a source of frustration. Your lightness starts to feel like indifference. What they projected onto you doesn't match reality. And then comes the disappointment. The enchantment crumbles when the illusion loses its strength. That's why falling in love can be so dangerous for those who don't know themselves. When someone idealizes you for what you represent, they aren't loving you. They're trying to heal themselves through you. And this puts you in an unfair position because you become a character in a story that isn't even yours. And the craziest part? You might be doing this to someone right now without realizing it. But the good news is that by recognizing this pattern, you can break the cycle, because true love doesn't come from neediness. It begins to take shape when we look inward and understand what we're really seeking outside. Anima and Animus, internal gender archetypes. Within every man exists an unconscious image of the feminine, and within every woman, an unconscious image of the masculine. Jung called these forces Anima and Animus, and they're what, without us realizing, guide many of our attractions. It's not just about liking someone, it's about recognizing in the other a symbolic piece that lives within us. For example, a man who grew up seeing fragile women might carry a delicate anima and seek this profile without understanding why. Meanwhile, a woman surrounded by harsh male figures might project an authoritarian animus attracted to domineering men. These internal images don't just come from childhood. They're shaped by movies, books, soap operas, music, everything that feeds the imagination about what it means to be a real man or an ideal woman. And then, when we meet someone who fits this symbolic figure, our heart races. Not because the person is the right one, but because they activate an archetype that's been living in our mind for years. A good example is when you meet someone and think, it's like they stepped out of my dreams. Except that this dream isn't romantic, it's psychological. Understanding these archetypes is like shining a flashlight on the stage where our love life unfolds. Because when we don't notice these internal forces, we end up trapped in an emotional loop, always attracted to the same figures, living the same scripts, repeating the same mistakes. But when we recognize these patterns, we have the chance to choose differently. It's not about rejecting the anima or animus, but integrating them. And that's where the game starts to turn, when attraction stops being destiny and becomes consciousness. And consciousness, as you'll see in the next point, changes everything. Reason 2, you awaken an unconscious image. You know that feeling of love at first sight? That connection that seems to have come from another life? As if everything fits together in an almost mystical way. Well, this isn't chance, nor magic. Jung said that often we fall in love because the other person awakens an unconscious image we've carried within us for a long time. Like a mold that was stored deep in the mind, and suddenly someone fits perfectly into it. And the impact of this is so strong that it even seems like destiny. But it's just the psyche doing its silent work. This internal image might have formed from childhood figures, memorable characters, or even experiences that left a deep impression. For example, someone who grew up with an absent father might have created an idealized image of masculine protection. When they meet a person who activates this symbolic memory, the attraction is almost inevitable. But this attraction, despite being intense, isn't always healthy, because what's being loved isn't the other, it's the sensation they awaken. It's the familiar disguised as novelty, and this can be beautiful or dangerous, depending on how you handle this projection. And the most curious part, this identification can be instantaneous, silent, almost inexplicable. You look, feel, connect, and that's it. It seems like you already knew the person, but in fact, you're rediscovering an old psychic image. And this, of course, reinforces the illusion that it's forever. But if the relationship begins based on this unconscious resonance, the challenge comes soon after, dealing with a real human being, full of nuances that weren't in the mold. And that's where another phenomenon enters that affects us all. Something that can either build up or tear down any relationship. The trap of idealization. At first, everything seems magical. The person laughs at your jokes, enjoys the same shows, has that something that leaves you hypnotized, but suddenly they start showing flaws. Small things that you used to ignore now bother you. That's when idealization begins to crumble. The trap has been set from the beginning. You didn't fall in love with the person. You fell in love with the idea of them. A perfect version, flawless, that only exists in your head. And when reality appears, enchantment turns into demands, and often disappointment. Idealizing someone is like putting together a puzzle with pieces you invented yourself. You choose what to see, ignore what you don't want to face, and project your desires onto the living canvas of the other. But the other person hasn't read this script. They'll act as they are, not as you dreamed they would be, and then conflict becomes inevitable. Have you seen those couples who start out as pure passion and, out of nowhere, turn into an emotional battlefield? In many cases, it wasn't a lack of love, it was too much illusion. And illusion, when broken, comes at a high price. This emotional trap doesn't just happen in intense romances. Sometimes, even a peaceful relationship can hide silent idealizations. He'll change with time. She's only like this because she suffered a lot. Phrases that reveal more about the fantasy than about the real person. And the most challenging part is accepting that truly loving someone begins with seeing who this person really is, with their traumas, fears, imperfections. But this vision is only possible when we stop looking for perfection in others and start facing what all this says about ourselves. And that's when love begins to transform into a mirror. Love as a mirror for growth. To truly love is like looking in a mirror, except it's not your face that appears, but your soul. Jung said that relationships are like living laboratories of the psyche. In them, everything that's hidden inside you comes to the surface. The traumas, beliefs, unfulfilled desires, everything appears through the other. And the most curious part, this happens especially in the most intense relationships, those that mess up your emotional structure, because it's in chaos that truth reveals itself, and truth sometimes hurts, but it also liberates. When you fall in love, what's at stake isn't just the other. It's you yourself faced with what needs to be revisited, healed, understood. Jealousy, for example, might show your insecurity. Emotional dependency reveals your difficulty in being alone. Fear of abandonment points to old wounds you've carried since childhood. All this emerges as an invitation to growth. But this invitation, of course, doesn't come wrapped in pretty paper. It comes in the form of crisis, friction, discomfort, and those who don't understand this keep running from relationships, from people, and from themselves. Now, when you accept this call, everything changes. You begin to realize that love isn't the end, but the path, a mirroring process where each encounter reveals a part that was hidden. And that's powerful, because even in the pain, in the breakups, in the silences, there's a teaching, something that transforms you, that pushes you forward. And the more awareness you develop about this, the more you stop repeating patterns. And it's precisely at this point, when the cycle breaks, that a new journey begins to take shape. Individuation, becoming complete. The truth is that no one appears in your life by chance. Each passion, each relationship, each romantic frustration, all of this reveals parts of you that were dormant. And it's in this process that individuation is born, a profound concept from Jung that talks about becoming whole, complete, conscious of who you truly are. It's not about becoming someone perfect, but about integrating light and shadow, reason and emotion, strength and vulnerability. The journey of love is, deep down, a journey inward. And each person who crosses your path is a mirror with a piece of your puzzle. Falling in love is often a sign that something inside you is ready to emerge. You connect with someone and suddenly feel an emotional explosion that seems to come from nowhere. But it comes from within, from your unconscious asking for space, showing what still needs to be understood. The problem is when people confuse this experience with external salvation, as if the other person came to fill a void, when in fact the other only points out where the hole is. And true healing begins when you stop looking outside for what you need to build within. Want a practical example? If you always fall in love with emotionally unavailable people, perhaps you're projecting your own difficulty in surrendering. The other person merely exposes something you haven't yet faced in yourself. That's why self-knowledge becomes the most powerful tool of love. Therapy helps. Reflective writing helps. Self-awareness, deep reading. All of this brings you closer to your totality. And when this begins to happen, love stops being an emotional prison and transforms into a bridge to something greater, more mature, and more conscious. And that's when the cycle begins to break. Breaking the cycle of illusion. Most people keep repeating the same mistakes in love without realizing it. It almost seems like déjà vu, change the name, change the face. But the story is always the same. Why? Because we tend to confuse projections with real feelings. The mind creates a script, and we cast the other as the protagonist in our internal soap opera. But deep down, it's the same dynamic: attraction, euphoria, frustration. This cycle only breaks with awareness. And awareness requires courage. Courage to face head-on what you've been feeding within yourself without outsourcing responsibility. It's easy to blame others. Nobody's good. Everyone deceives. I only attract problematic people. But what if, actually, the one who needs to change is you? Not from the outside in, but inside out, questioning your beliefs, your neediness, your emotional repetitions. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Heavy, right? But it's liberating, because by realizing this, you step out of the victim role and take control. And then yes, a new narrative begins, more real, more lucid, and much lighter. If you want to stop suffering in love, finding the right person isn't enough. You need to become the right person for yourself. And this requires internal work. There's no magic formula, but there are tools: therapy, reading authors like Jung, self-awareness practices like journaling or meditation. Simple things, but profound. Because when you know yourself, you stop falling into the traps of illusion. And then, love stops being a battlefield and becomes what it should have always been: a space of real encounter. And it's in this space that something extraordinary can happen. Awakening through love. In the end, true love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who shows you without realizing it, where you're still sleeping inside. It's when you feel that relationship has awakened something you didn't even know existed. It might be a new courage, an old pain, a forgotten desire, but it's always a call to consciousness. Authentic love isn't calm waters, it's movement. It doesn't come to make you comfortable, but to expand you. And this expansion only happens when you understand that the other didn't come to complete you. They came to reveal you. Deep relationships have this curious effect. They push you to the next level, even when you resist. Sometimes it's through admiration, sometimes through frustration. but there's always something there wanting to be seen. It's as if love were a flashlight pointing inward. And the most beautiful part? This awakening doesn't need to be dramatic. It can start subtly, in a conversation, in a discomfort, in a desire to change. Because truly, loving is this, awakening parts of yourself that were dormant, hidden, or rejected. And the other person, unknowingly, helps you reconnect with your own essence. Have you ever stopped to think how many times a relationship made you grow more than any course, book, or lecture? Love life, if well lived, is a school without a blackboard, but with daily lessons. And the diploma? It's you becoming someone more whole, more conscious, more free. Love isn't the end of the road, it's the beginning of a new version of you. And when this happens, the game changes. You stop looking for magical loves and start living real connections. And that's when the true magic happens. Now that you know what really moves the human heart, how about using this to transform your love life? Understanding isn't enough. You need to apply it. What you've seen here can help you stop repeating patterns, see yourself more clearly, and finally build more conscious, freer, and truer relationships. But I ask you, who have you been connecting with? Is it love or projection? And most importantly, who do you become in each relationship? Maybe it's time to stop looking for answers outside and start observing yourself more deeply. Love isn't a finish line, it's a process of awakening. And this awakening can begin now with a simple choice, looking inward with honesty. So tell me in the comments, which part of this video touched you the most? At what moment did you feel revealed? Let's talk about it. Your story might be similar to many people's here. If this content made you think differently, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because every week there's a video to expand your consciousness and strengthen your relationships. And if you want to continue this journey with me, click on the video appearing on the screen. It will show you another powerful part of this puzzle that is human love.